Hello everyone, this is part 51 of What If Naruto and Hinata trained together and a spark happened, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Tsunade chuckled twice, and then began openly laughing. You came here to surrender. The Hokage guffaw. Then she suddenly stopped, and her eyes turned hard. What kind of fool do you take me for? I did not say I would give myself up freely. Konan maintained her cool, but if you are willing to meet my conditions, I will remit myself to your custody, and tell you everything I know. About Guki Namikaze, his generals, his plans, the Shizokus. Information that could win you this war. You hardly look ready to negotiate. Tsunade's eyes narrowed thoughtfully as she reined in her anger. She gestured to indicate the paper daggers the other woman was holding. I had to make sure I would not be killed or captured before we could talk, the origami shinobi argued evenly. Then let's talk. Not in public, the renegade shook her head. You don't expect me to be alone with you, do you? The Sannin countered. No. So my first deal is this, give me a 24-hour amnesty. So long as I do not spy or harm your people, I am free to come and go for the next day, unhindered by your people. Then we can go and talk, somewhere secure. For your safety you may have any 3 of your people present. And for mine, I want Naruto Uzumaki there. Tsunade frowned. She felt a general honesty in the younger woman's words, right up to the end. She could tell that there was some other reason Konan wanted Naruto there. Really? The Hokage probed, why do you want the knucklehead there? We all know how stupidly honorable and uncommonly strong he is. Konan shrugged without altering the placement of her blades. If you promise my safety, I know at least he will uphold that promise. The last Sannin again sensed the truth in Konan's words, though she still felt Jiraiya's student was holding back. Unless, of course, she is a much better liar than I think she is, Tsunade thought to herself, wishing a Hyuga or an interrogator was present to confirm her impressions. Fine, Tsunade waved her hand, you have a 48-hour amnesty, starting now, unless you violate our hospitality. That is generous of you, Konan frowned as she released her hostages. The 2 Chunin scrambled away, leaving the 2 women facing each other openly. Why? The paper user prompted. Because Naruto's team isn't due back from the Sound Village until tomorrow, and I didn't want you worrying that we would run out of time in the middle of our talks. Konan nodded her understanding, and relaxed, if only a little. After escorting the guest to the Octagon Shuriken, Tsunade flipped open her phone and called operations. Change the guard rotations, she ordered. I want every Hyuga, Inuzuka, and Aburame out. Put 60% of them on the walls, and have the rest patrol the village. Tell them to keep an eye on our guest, if she chooses to venture out. But more importantly, they should look for any other incursions, in case this is a distraction. Like last time. Konan sat on one side of the table, and behind her sat Naruto and Hinata. Across from her sat the Hokage, with Kakashi Hatake on her right and Shikamaru Nara on her left. Unlike Naruto and Hinata, the 2 shinobi with the Hokage were at her side, at the table, not placed a few feet back. Tsunade would have rather had Shikaku than his son, but the elder tactician was still directing the cleanup of the Shizokus in the land of rice patties. Similarly, Hinata was not the best lie detector among the Hyugas, but she was available and she would help keep Naruto in line. Beyond that, her fiancé would have told the pale beauty about the negotiations anyway, so including her instead of another member of her clan kept the loop smaller. Though he had been annoyed to be excluded, Tsunade had kept Yasuo Mizuno out of the meeting at Konan's firm request. Instead, the Hokage promised to fill in the Mizukage and her other peers as soon as possible. There must be something you want very badly from to come here and offer to betray Guki, Tsunade said smugly, so, let's start with you telling me what it is. I want you to rescue Nagato, the paper user said, unable to keep a hint of desperation from her voice, and bring him here. And use your skills to help him recover. Then, decommission both of us, and let us live here freely as civilians, under your protection. Those are my demands. Do that and I will tell you everything I know. The 5-leaf shinobi all gawked at her openly, too thoroughly shocked by Konan's statement to maintain their composure. Just to clarify, because we've had hints and suspicions, but no definite proof, the Sanins said after she recovered, but your friend Nagato is also the one we know as Pain, right? Yes, Conan nodded shallowly. The 6 paths of pain are extensions of Nagato, one of the powers afforded him by his Rinnegan. They are also what is killing him. Let me get this straight, Shikamaru interjected incredulously, you want us to rescue Guki's most loyal, most powerful, and most vital follower. Presumably from the Kumogakur or the Omegakur, or some other nigh impregnable fortress. Is Guki holding this Nagato guy hostage, and forcing him to use the pains to help him? Naruto asked, his eye squinted in confusion. No, as Nara-kun said, Nagato is loyal to Guki-sensei, Conan answered, and in addition, he believes helping Guki-sensei achieve his goals is penance for killing Yahiko. That is why he is willing to push himself to the verge of death. Surely Guki wouldn't give up his most valuable general. Tsunade mirrored Shikamaru's disposition. I used to think that, Conan agreed, but Guki-sensei relies heavily on pain. And he arrogantly believes he can keep Nagato alive, at least long enough to complete his plans. But worst of all, Guki-sensei knows that the paths of pain will survive Nagato's death. Without Nagato, they would be unable to replace any paths that might die, but the existing proxies would continue to operate as they have been. I don't buy it, Tsunade shook her head. If Nagato really did kill Yahiko, and if he wants to die because of that, why would you stop him and betray Guki all in one stroke? Who is, or I guess was, Yahiko, anyway? Naruto interrupted. I guess I will have to start from the beginning, Conan sighed. There were many orphans after the Second Great Ninja War, and Yahiko, Nagato, and I were among them. Yahiko had been born into a wealthy merchant family in the Land of Rain, and after his parents died, his relatives stole all his money, and left him in an orphanage. But the other children resented his previous life, and tormented him, so Yahiko ran away. Nagato was also born in the Rain country, but in a small village near the Leaf border. One day his village became a battleground between groups of Rain, Leaf, and Stone shinobi. Nagato had been playing at a friend's house when the fighting started, and when he got home, he saw 3 ninjas run out of his house. The last, a Leaf ninja, stopped and asked if Nagato lived there. After Nagato said, yes, the Leaf ninja apologized and ran after the first 2 ninjas. Nagato went inside, and found his parents and older sister, all dead. He went berserk, activating his Rinnegan instinctively. Then he killed every single ninja fighting in his village. She took a deep breath, which came out as a sad sigh. Even though he had saved them, the rest of the townsfolk were frightened of him, and they drove him out. Conan paused as if trying to decide, and Hinata prompted gently, and what about you, Conan-san? I was born in the Grass County, right next to the border with the Rain country. My father was on a business trip when he was killed by a shinobi. I never found out from which village. And then my mother took ill, and died. I was sent to live with an uncle, but the way he treated me was inhumane, so I also ran away. You mean he? Hinata interjected sadly. No, Conan chuckled ironically, if he had done something like you are thinking, I might have been able to understand it. But when I said inhumane, I meant it literally. He collected porcelain dolls, and I became part of his collection. He gave me beautiful, fancy dresses to wear, and I was made to sit or stand for hours without moving. If I blinked, or fidgeted, he would ground me from reading for a few days, or give me bread and broth for dinner while he ate normal meals. He never hurt me physically, or starved me or anything like that, but it was strange and creepy, and when I couldn't take it anymore, I fled. I met Yahiko a few months later. There was a temple that was providing meals for people hurt by the war, and he approached me because I was alone and about the same age. He started talking to me, and after a few days I opened up and started talking to him as well. We became friends, and started to stick together. We discovered it was easier together than it was alone. People would be more generous giving alms to a poor brother and sister, and we could also watch each other's backs. A few more months after that, I took some money that I had saved up, and went to buy a new book. But the shopkeeper refused to serve, a grubby little orphan, and accused me of being a thief. When I complained, he tried to punch me. But Nagato was there, and he protected me. He stepped in between me and the salesperson, and took the hit on the back. He did it without flinching, and when he turned to look at the bookseller, the older man looked afraid. He even took a step away from us. But then the salesman got his nerve back, and demanded we both leave or he would call the police. Nagato just bowed, and gently pulled me outside. He started to leave, but I grabbed his arm, and asked him to come with me. I took him to Yahiko, and told him what happened, and asked if Nagato could join us. Yahiko resisted at first, but he ultimately agreed. That was how the three of us became a team. The next few years were hard. Even after the end of the war, there was not a lot of food, nor did people have a lot of more to give away, even to 3 children. But we stayed together, and sometimes resorted to theft, and ultimately we managed to survive. And then we met him. Jiraiya, Tsunade noted with a tone to match Conan's sadness. Yes, the younger woman nodded. The 3 of us were leaving the latest village we had been haunting, and Jiraiya-sensei was on his way in for the night. And when Nagato saw Sensei's hidden leaf headband, he went crazy and attacked him. I'm not sure if it was because Jiraiya-sensei was just that much more skilled than the ninjas who attacked Nagato's village, or if Nagato was just too weak from 2 years of barely surviving, but Jiraiya-sensei subdued Nagato with little trouble. I remember him staring very intently at Nagato's eyes, and I was afraid, so I gave him a peace offering. Conan suddenly produced a sheet of paper, and the leaf ninjas tensed. But she sent a sliver of chakra into it, and it folded itself into a flower, similar to, yet simpler than, the one in her hair. Interesting, Jiraiya noted as he took the flower. Who taught you how to do this? No one, sir, she quailed slightly under his gaze. I just sort of, do it. Is this another Kekkei Genkai? The leaf Jonin pondered under his breath, or just a natural talent? He looked over them again cannily, and then released the bearer of the Rinnegan. Jiraiya took a step back and assumed a non-threatening stance. It looks like you 3 have had it pretty rough, he said, openly and jovially. How would you like me to teach you a few things to make your lives easier? Yahiko agreed immediately. Conan continued, and Nagato didn't say anything, but it was obvious from his expression he wanted to refuse. They both looked to me to decide, and I decided to trust Jiraiya-sensei. The next year and a half went by very quickly. At first, he just taught us how to survive, how to hunt, trap, and fish. About which fruits and berries tasted good, which ones tasted bad but were still nutritious, and which one would kill us. But then he slowly began to teach us other things. How to harness and control our chakra. How to fight and how to sneak. We didn't realize it at first, but he was teaching us to be ninjas. Then we showed up. Tsunade interjected when the younger woman paused to collect her thoughts. The defector nodded. Yes, you and Orochimaru tracked down Jiraiya-sensei, to bring him back here. Conan recalled, you said he was needed for a mission. He offered to take us back with him, to let us become leaf ninjas. I wanted to jump at the chance, and was ready to drag Nagato with us. Even though he had grown to trust of even respect Jiraiya-sensei, back then Nagato still bore a grudge against the leaf village. He thought sensei's conduct was the exception, not the rule. Are you saying Nagato doesn't hate the Konohagakure anymore? Naruto interrupted. Yes, the origami user confirmed, but I will get to that shortly. Anyway, once again, Yahiko was the first to speak for us, she resumed, but this time he surprised us by turning down Jiraiya-sensei's offer. I thought he did it for Nagato, so I followed his example. Jiraiya-sensei seemed upset by our choice, but accepted it. You 3 left, and once again we were on our own. But that wasn't going to last long. The next day, Yahiko told us why he had decided not to follow sensei. There were many other orphans in the villages we frequented, and Yahiko wanted to start taking care of them and training them like Jiraiya had done for us. Nagato and I were shocked at first, but as he laid out his plan, we got caught up in his excitement. We decided to do it, and found our first new wards only a few days later. Over the next few years we amassed a group of almost 40 other kids, and trained them. At the same time, we honed our own skills, and to learn more, we acquired books and scrolls on chakra and combat, sometimes legally and other times not. As our abilities and numbers grew we began to take on odd jobs in local villages, basically doing D-rank missions. Yahiko started calling us the Akatsuki, saying we could be the dawn of a new era for the people of the Rain Country. Wasn't that dangerous? Kakashi interrupted in his normal, bland manner, you were kind of stepping on the hidden Rain's toes. Yes, but back then, Hanzo was rejecting most of those kinds of jobs, she answered. If there wasn't a chance for combat, the possibility his genin would get some kind of battle experience, he was not interested. At first, we only took the jobs from people after the Rain turned him away, but in time people figured out Hanzo was just going to throw him out, and that we charged less, so they started coming to us first. Nagato and I worried that it would be like you said, but we heard through the grapevine that Hanzo was actually happy that we were saving him the time and paperwork of having to deal with requests he considered inconsequential. In time, we saved up enough money to buy our own plot of land, and began to build more permanent residences. And also during that time, as we approached physical adulthood, both Nagato and Yahiko started to court me. Then the Third Great War started. And as the Rain began to send out shinobi to do battle, they had less manpower to devote to bodyguard jobs and hunting bandits. But at the same time, the number of bandits increased as people were displaced by the fighting. And the people started coming more and more to our little fake ninja village. I said we should turn them away, but Yahiko said it was our job to help them. Conan sighed in regret, and to be honest we didn't really fight him on it. We had improved a great deal since Jiraiya-sensei left us, and we had dozens of less experienced comrades. We were overconfident, and self-important. And we might have gotten away with it. The war came to an end, the Rain ninjas returned, and Hanzo had new crops of genin to train. But in our arrogance, we kept taking jobs hunting thieves and protecting merchants. We decided since the Rain couldn't keep up during the war, they forfeited their right to those missions. Hanzo felt differently. It happened 3 months after the treaties were signed, 3 months to the day. Her expression clouded in painful memory. Nagato and Yahiko were out guarding a caravan, but everyone else was at home. Hanzo and 6 of his elite Jonin assassins appeared out of nowhere. Our sentries died before they even noticed the invasion. They slaughtered everyone. It was barely a fight. I managed to kill one, but was hurt in the process, and the other Rain ninjas surrounded me almost immediately. I thought I was dead, but Hanzo ordered them to stop. He realized the Nagato and Yahiko were not there, and he had somehow heard that they were in love with me. So he took me hostage, and made camp to wait. Yahiko was their target. Hanzo had learned that Yahiko had come up with the idea to train other orphans, and that he was our leader. As we waited, some of his men asked if they could play with me. She shuddered at the thought, but Hanzo stopped them. He said if they broke me, I wouldn't be as useful as bait. Just after noon on the 4th day, Nagato and Yahiko returned. They found our friends, our students, massacred, left to rot where they fell. Nagato told me later he almost snapped. You see, he recognized the wounds on our comrades, they were just like the ones on his family. When Hanzo and his men revealed themselves, Nagato almost attacked them, but when Hanzo showed me to them, both Nagato and Yahiko froze. So you are the boy who has been stealing from me. The Rain leader's voice sounded mechanical through his complex breathing apparatus. He pushed the young woman into the arms of his second, and took a step closer. After staring at the orange-haired teen for a moment, Hanzo turned to crimson-haired Rinnegan bearer. I understand both of you have a more than passing interest in this fair lass, he taunted Nagato, but I also am led to believe she is more interested in your friend than in you. But I don't care about you or the girl. Hanzo tossed a kunai to Nagato, before stepping back. The teen unwittingly caught the blade, and noticed the edges possessed an odd, purple hue. So I will make you a bargain, Hanzo continued, kill your friend, the one who organized this insult to me, and I will allow you and the lass to live. Provided you leave the land of Rain, of course. Nagato glanced back and forth from Yahiko to Conan, his remarkable eyes betraying uncertainty. The blade is poisoned, Hanzo added, in case you were thinking about trying to trick me with an attack that looks worse than it is. Even the slightest cut should do the job. He wanted to save me. Conan wiped away a tear, but he didn't want to kill his best friend, and he was afraid if he did it, I would think he was doing it so I couldn't be with Yahiko. And he told me part of him wanted to do it for that very reason. So you were in love with Yahiko, Tsunade mused. The Hokage took that as further reason to suspect the supposed defector, but kept her doubts out of her voice. No. Conan's expression suddenly shifted from sad to wistfully happy. Yahiko was a ladies' man, the sort of guy who could make any girl giggle and blush. Even me, which is why some people might have thought I was interested in him. But I could never really trust Yahiko's intentions. No, Nagato was the one I fell for, his gentleness, his determination, his loyalty. And he needed me in a way Yahiko never did. Hinata found herself nodded in agreement. Naruto glanced at his beloved, and she smiled at him and took his hand. When he thought Nagato wouldn't make a decision, Hanzo took another step. Conan's expression darkened. He told Nagato that if he didn't kill Yahiko, then he would make both of them watch while he let his men do whatever they wanted to me. I started to try to fight back again, until Nagato began to turn towards Yahiko with an apologetic look. For a moment, it looked like he would do what that bastard Hanzo wanted, and the rain ninjas looked almost gleeful. But then Nagato hesitated, and Yahiko did not. He grabbed Nagato's hand, to keep him from dropping the kunai. And then he sliced open his own belly. Yahiko forced Nagato to help him commit seppuku, to save us both. Ha ha, Hanzo's laughter rang out over the ruined village. Wonderful, the rain leader guffawed, what spirit, what loyalty. After a few more moments of grotesque joy, Hanzo calmed down and addressed this men. Release her, he ordered. Hanzo-sama. The Jonin-hold Conan hesitated. His hand held the knife that killed his friend, Hanzo explained, making him ultimately responsible. Answer, I must honor my bargain. Nagato couldn't take it anymore. Before we knew what was happening, 2 of Hanzo's men were dead, crushed where they stood. He charged forward, enraged, and Hanzo was able to avoid him, but Nagato quickly killed the last 3 Jonin who had slaughtered our friends. I think their surprise cost him as much as his rage, but in the end it didn't matter. Nagato turned and went after Hanzo. But even berserk and intuitively using his Rinnegan, Nagato was not able to overcome Hanzo. The fight lasted a few minutes, and Nagato pulled out every jutsu he knew, but in the end, Hanzo was too powerful, too experienced. He was able to fight the 3 of us to a draw, Tsunade noted. And that was what saved us. Hanzo recognized Jiraiya-sensei's fighting style from Nagato, and after he had Nagato at his mercy, he decided it was amusing we were the students of Jiraiya-sensei. He said as much, and then reiterated his decision to let us live. And then he was gone, leaving the 2 of us alone. Nagato crawled over to Yahiko's body, his spent rage replaced by despair. Then he was instinctively drew on his Rinnegan again. He broke off a portion of his mind, soul, and life force, and poured them into Yahiko's body, bringing him back after a fashion. Pain, Naruto snarled in spite of himself. Yes, Conan was not upset. Understanding his anger and distaste, Yahiko became Nagato's Deva path. At the time we didn't understand what was happening. We were relieved, confused, and mostly frightened, both of Nagato's power and of Hanzo. So, after we buried our friends, we left our village and marched west. We skirted the borders between countries until we reached our new goal. The land of forests was neutral, and didn't have a hidden village, so we hoped we would be safe there. Despite our desire to avoid any more shinobi entanglements, that was where we met Guki-sensei. Guki-sensei had heard of us from Orochimaru, who in turn had heard from Jiraiya-sensei. We tried to avoid him, but he was intrigued. He wanted to know what had drawn Jiraiya-sensei to us, and continued to follow us. We came to realize that, like Hanzo, Guki-sensei had skills and experience far outstripping our own, and that if he wanted to hurt or control us, he could have. So we started to trust him, and told him how we had come to flee to the forest country. He commiserated, and offered to bring our skills up to Jonin level, and help Nagato understand his paths of pain. Nagato saw his chance for revenge against Hanzo, and we agreed. Guki-sensei helped Nagato change what he had done to Yahiko into a formal ninjutsu, albeit one that required the Rinnegan. To test his new power, Nagato and Guki-sensei tracked down a renegade Hidden Minds Jonin, and remade him as the second path of pain. That was Pain's original Naraka path, the one that Takamikis killed last year. 4 years after we met Guki-sensei, Pain's Deva and Naraka paths snuck into the Hidden Rain village. They made it to Hanzo's manor uninterrupted, and engaged him in battle. Nagato has never really told me what happened, but I know his 2 paths were able to kill Hanzo. Afterwards, Deva Pain took Hanzo's rain shield, carved a line through it, and began to wear it as his own. That is what brought us to Madara's attention. He offered us a position in the group he was forming. Guki-sensei asked us to accept Madara's offer, to keep an eye on the first Uchiha and discover what he had planned. Madara asked Pain to be the official leader of the group, and suggested we call the group the Akatsuki, as Yahiko had. Neither of us was ever fond of the name, but we didn't want Madara to pervert it either. In the end, we agreed, if only to prevent Madara from being suspicious. That is how the Akatsuki came to be formed. That is our story, or at least the abridged version. And why I want to save Nagato, no matter what it costs me. So, the long and short of it is, Nagato is the most important thing to you, Kakashi concluded when Conan paused for breath, and looked uncertain as to how to continue. Yes, I would do anything for him. Anything, except leave him or let him die. Tsunade met Hinata's eyes, and the younger woman's nod was almost imperceptible. The last Sannin took a deep breath, and thought about it. She trusted the Hyuga heiress, but also feared the teen might have identified with Conan during the story. But her own instincts and training also told the Hokage that the origami kunoichi was sincere in her goals and her justifications. Finally she nodded. All right, we have a deal, Tsunade told the defector. How do you want to seal it? Blood oaths. No, Conan answered, I think a witnessed contract jutsu would be better. Tsunade's eyes widened. Unlike the blood oath, the witnessed contract did not personally hold its signatories to their promise. Instead it linked the oath to one or more witnesses, who in turn would know instantly if anyone who took part in the contract broke their word. Given the only witnesses around were the Leaf Ninjas, the defector was essentially placing her trust fully in them. Even if Tsunade betrayed Conan, it was unlikely any of the witnesses would hold her accountable. If that is okay with you, the Sannin shrugged, trying to look nonchalant. But inside she was debating if Conan was up to something, or if the other woman was truly so afraid she was willing to continually put herself at a disadvantage to secure the Leaf's aid. Will these four be acceptable as witnesses? Tsunade asked. Yes, the only witness I would have asked for is already here. Conan turned her head slightly, and her eyes drifted towards Naruto. Kakashi, can you set up the seal? The Hokage requested, before turning her attention to the three teenage ninjas, and are the three of you familiar with the technique for witnessing the contract? The copy ninja nodded, as did the pale beauty. Naruto frowned in thought, racking his brain before finally shaking his head. No. Shikamaru's expression turned dark, and he addressed their leader directly. If it's all the same to you, I'd rather not, the lazy genius told the Sannin. Oh, really? Tsunade was annoyed but not surprised. Yeah, having an extra alarm clock in my head, one that I never know when it's gonna go off. Not my idea of a good time. Too bad, the last Sannin grinned threateningly at the Chunin. He knew the expression well, and shrugged in defeat. Good. Tsunade smirked in triumph. Kakashi set out the Fuinjutsu while Hinata quietly explained to Naruto about the process and effects of witnessing the jutsu. After some discussion about the wording of the contract, Tsunade swore to rescue Nagato, turn her medical expertise towards restoring his health, and to allow he and Conan to live in the Leaf under her protection, after they were decommissioned. And Conan promised to reveal everything she knew about Guki, his followers, and his plans, without let or reservation. Great, Tsunade nodded once the jutsu circle faded. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions over the next few weeks, but for starters, tell me all about the Shizokis. Gaara of the Sand, Mitsuru Jishin, and Yasuo Mizuno all stared at Tsunade, dumbfounded. Say that again, the Tsuchikage demanded incredulously. The Leaf medic decided she had never seen the other female Kage display that much open emotion. Which part? The Fire Shadow countered, that Conan defected to the Konohagakure, or that we need to step up our timetable before it is too late. Was that what she wanted, when she demanded to speak to you alone? The Water Shadow asked evenly. Tsunade nodded once, her annoyance at their confusion growing. Why would she do that? Gaara's expression returned to his normal mask, but there was a catch in his voice. Why would she abandon Guki and Pain? Everything in our intelligence reports indicates she would never betray them. This must be some sort of trap, the Earth Shadow decided. No, the last Sannin said certainly, she is a woman desperate to save the man she loves, and we are the means for her to do it. Besides, the contract we entered into guarantees if she tries to lie to us or betray us, we will know instantly. The other shadows watch her, but finally Yasuo nodded his acceptance. At roughly the same time, Gaara relaxed. But Mitsuru remained uncertain. We will need to discuss this more later, the elder Kunoiki stated, but in the meantime, perhaps you should tell us what has you so agitated. Tsunade nodded, and began to relay Conan's knowledge. Shizuka Saguki-sensei's replacement for ninjas, Conan started answering Tsunade's question in the broadest possible strokes. But her statement set off Naruto. Replacement for ninjas. Uzumaki demanded, what does that mean? Shinobi wield incredible power, both individually and as a social political class, she explained. Many people believe that the civilian daimyos are only allowed to rule at our discretion, and there is some truth to that. Most common people either worship us as demigods or fear us as demons. Shizukas are designed to change all that, without losing the necessary roles shinobi play in modern life. How so? Kakashi prompted curiously. Shizukas are anonymous, Conan answered, only their color ranking gives an indication of their individual skill level. They have no personal honor or glory and cannot be requested individually for missions. But more importantly, each Shozaku swears a blood oath to follow a set of strictures. They deal with what a Shozaku is and is not allowed to do. The first says that a Shozaku is not allowed to kill a civilian, or allow a civilian to die when the Shozaku can reasonably save that person. The second deals with a Shozaku's anonymity, who is allowed to know, and when, and why. Most of the rest deal with other crimes a Shozaku is not allowed to commit: theft, rape, arson, kidnapping, vandalism, etc. That sounds too good to be true. Tsunade caught the shadowing in the younger woman's eyes, and subtly directed the path of the revelation. There are caveats, Conan admitted. The strictures do not apply to the goal of a mission. A Shozaku can still be ordered to kidnap or kill a civilian. And none of those rules, except for concealment of idini, apply to anyone legitimately identified as a ninja. Shizukas are free to steal from us, kill us, or anything else we could do to them. But the last two loopholes are the most worrying. The defector took a breath. A Shozaku can break the strictures if it is absolutely necessary to complete his or her mission. But at least that exception has an exception. If the Shozaku's superior judges he or she could have completed the mission without breaking the rules, or by breaking a less important rule, the Shozaku's blood oath will kick in and he or she will die. And finally, any order from Guki-sensei counts as a mission and overrides the strictures for as long as it applies, Conan told them, and while I trust Guki-sensei more than anyone except Nagato, I can't help but be worried by that. Okay. Tsunade plowed ahead after the leaf ninjas to a moment to assimilate the information. That covers the why. Let's talk about the how. As in, how do these known, third-rate bandits jump to Genin, Chunin, or in some cases even Jonin level of skill in a matter of months? Madara Uchiha, and his Susanoo O, Conan stated bitterly, I'm guessing you all know at least the basics of Susanoo O, that it is an upgraded version of Tsukuyomi, and that instead of lasting a few seconds, Susanoo O is permanent, trapping the target in whatever hell, or in a few rare cases heaven, Madara designates, for the rest of their life. Which tends to be a matter of days, as the victim cannot eat or drink on their own. The others nodded their understanding, and she continued, Guki-sensei hypothesized that Madara had the power to remove the effect of Susanoo O from his victims, and the Madara could program the genjutsu to show any sort of illusion. And Madara confirmed that both theories were correct. So Guki-sensei instructed Madara to design an illusion of ninja training, and place the various unskilled mercenaries in that version of Susanoo O. In that illusion, each second in the real world is one day in the mind. Kakashi's visible eye widened as he considered the implications. Each Shozaku remains in Susanoo O for 3 hours, Conan nodded, which equates to just under 30 years of intensive training. Not everyone's mind reacts the same way to the training, which is part of the reason for the different ranks of the Shizokus. And Madara only has enough chakra to train 10 to 12 Shizokus like that each day. But being a ninja isn't just about knowing jutsu and stuff, Naruto protested, you have to be in good shape, and work out your chakra supply. No illusion is gonna do that. Most of the Shizokus are in fairly good physical shape to begin with, Conan noted, and after leaving Susanoo O, they are put through an intensive 2-week training and testing period. They are given various drugs and herbs, and worked rigorously to bring their physical and spiritual abilities into line with their mental skills. That is also when they are evaluated for their new rank. Still, the strain that must have put on their brains. Shikamaru shook his head dubiously. Initially, The training was too intense, and many of the subjects' minds simply collapsed when Susanoo was removed. But Guki-sensei helped Madara fine-tune the genjutsu, and there is now a 92% survival rate. And Guki-sensei had almost 2,000 bandits and renegades lined up for the conversion. So far, almost 800 have had the training, and 740 have survived. That explains the bandits, Tsunade nodded darkly, but we've also found an increasing number of shinobi in good standing of the villages Guki conquered amongst the Shizokis. Are you? As I said, Shizokis are to replace ninjas in Guki-sensei's new world, Conan interrupted. Ninjas in the villages he takes over are given a choice, to become a shozaku, to be decommissioned, or to be executed. At first we were not pressing the issue, giving them time to consider. But as the war has ramped up, we have been putting more pressure on them to convert. And most have been taking the offer. So, between shinobi swearing blood oaths to follow Guki and his rules, Tsunade concluded, and Madara turning the cannon fodder into pseudo-ninjas, Namikaze's forces are getting larger by the day. We can't afford to delay. We need to retake the grass, rain, and waterfall villages, while there is still something to liberate. In that case, I have a suggestion, Mitsuru rumbled. I feel the snow ninjas should join our siege of the Omegakure. The rain village may well be the toughest nut to crack, and I believe we may be able to use the snow ninjas' practical experience with Hyoten techniques to cross the river. The other shadows all nodded, understanding that if they could overcome the natural defense, that section of the wall would probably be the least defended. Or, if nothing else, they could force Pain to split the rain's defenses onto 3 quadrants, instead of 2. The sand will provide the primary hammer to strike the grass village. Yasuo noted the previous discussion on the map, and with Leaf Contingent acting as the anvil. My people will attack the waterfall country from the north, and the leaf will hit them from the south. All 4 great villages will each provide a small force to reinforce the sound village. And finally, the units from the Star Village will move into the Land of Forests to observe and harass any troops leaving the Land of Lightning through the Land of Silver, now that the Mines Village has surrendered. I still cannot believe the Mines Village eroded so easily. The Tsuchikage shook her head. It gives Earth-aligned nations a bad name. Guki cares nothing for their riches, Gaara stated. He only wants the Land of Silver so he does not have to send troops across the seas. The Mines Village was not ready to fight an opponent willing to collapse their mountains on top of them, and set the mining back years, if not decades. Based on what I saw last year, I wonder if they've grown too comfortable and lost some of their past strength, Tsunade suggested. Does anyone have any objections or suggestions to the plan? The Mizukage turned the conversation back to business. No. The Hokage shook her head. I'm good with what we have. As am I, the Wind Shadow agreed. Then, if speed is really as much of an issue as Tsunade's new intelligence suggests, we should not delay any longer. The avalanche of the hidden stone stood even as she made the recommendation. The others nodded and left their chairs as well. As she prepared to leave the conclave's chamber, Tsunade spared a quick glance for the lightning shadow's door, now sealed from both sides. Temari-sama, Matsuri bowed deeply to the older Kunoichi. The fan wielder shook her head in mock dismay. Matsuri-chan, how do you expect to date my brother if you cannot address me less formally? The blonde woman demanded in affectionate mock anger. The younger woman turned red, partly from the admonishment but mostly from the acknowledgement of her still unfulfilled goal. My apologies, Temari-san. It's a start, the hostage, to the leaf interjected. Where are the others? The Sand Chunin plowed ahead. I thought you were accompanying the Leaf Village strike force. They're right here, Temari grinned, and the other shinobi ceased to blend in with the tall grasses, becoming visible to the younger woman. But there are only 8 of them. Gaara's student-turned-stalker announced in surprise. Quality over Queni, Ino sniffed imperiously. Choji and Hinata both nodded. Though in this case, we didn't really sacrifice either, Iruka noted, inclining his head towards Naruto. Anko and Shikamaru both smirked in their respective fashions. What do you mean? Matsuri looked at her beloved Kazekage's savior suspiciously. The knucklehead has a new idea to increase his battlefield presence, Sakura noted in disgust, which is why Lady Tsunade made sure both Ino and I were here to keep him patched up. You'd think she didn't trust Hinata, Naruto sounded annoyed. I'm not happy about this either, Naruto, Hinata insisted softly. You're the only one I can count on to help me with this, the fox-faced youth told his lover sincerely, taking her hand. She sighed and lowered her head in defeat, knowing he would still try it without her, and believing she could make it easier on him. What are they talking about? The sand girl looked bewildered, but also blushed slightly at Naruto and Hinata's open affection. You'll see soon enough. Temari shook her head, barely believing what she had been told. Are you ready for this, Neji? Tenten could not keep the worry from her voice, remembering what had happened the last time they were here. The giant waterfall loomed before the nearly 4-score-leaf shinobi, and they were only waiting for the signal that the mist ninjas were in place. The 4 members of Team Guy were positioned at the end of the front line, holding position just beyond the edge of the forest at the bottom of the cliff that produced the natural water feature. Yes, the Hyuga Jonin nodded, remembering the grey-masked warriors who had ambushed him. I am looking forward to it. And finally, the grey Shosaku glanced at the last page of his report. We have news of 70 additional shinobi leaving the land of water, heading for the land of snow. Though the analysts believe there is a slight chance they mean to invade, the general consensus is that they intend to reinforce the land of snow while also using it as a staging point. But there is no agreement on where they might attack. Pain's Naraka Path nodded in acknowledgement, while Madara sighed in boredom. Kohaku pursed her lips in thought and began to study the map again. The 2 other captains listened carefully, but remained silently, knowing better than to speak unless addressed, particularly with the teacher present. Their leader's wife was like to mock them mercilessly if they offered unasked for opinions, but the first Uchiha would simply drop them with Tsukuyomi. And Guki started to ask a question, when his cellular rang. He frowned at the interruption, and his expression further darkened when he saw who was calling him. He raised his hand to excuse himself and stepped away from the table. Are you sure? He hissed almost a minute later, and his generals went from surreptitiously watching him, to openly staring. But the captains continued to play ignorant. Of course, Guki said more evenly after a few more moments, please keep me informed as soon as you find out more. He snapped his phone shut, and turned back to his warriors. Leave, he told the captains. Despite his face and voice suggesting at most mild annoyance, he radiated a killer intent that sent the grey Shizuka scrambling. As soon as they were alone, he spoke to his generals. That was my man in the Konohagakure, the Raikage said flatly. He informs me that Konan has surrendered to the Hokage. He is not privy to their discussion, but immediately afterwards, Tsunade-sensei informed the Leaf Jonin Council that Konan had claimed asylum and was under her personal protection. And then she dragged the Mizukage into a meeting with other 2 shadows. Madara barked a triumphant laugh and smirked knowingly at the single-eyed Pain. The Naraka Path jumped up, glared at the Sharingan user for a moment, and then swung his face back to Namikaze with an almost desperate expression. Guki-sama, I don't know anything about this, he insisted. Guki frowned again, recalling that Konan had been the one to insist that, when Madara was present, she and Nagata refer to their second teacher as Sama, instead of Sensei. She wanted to keep reinforcing for Uchiha who was in charge. After his moment of reflection, Guki shook his head and sighed. I know you did not, Pain, the Raikage agreed, but this. Gentlemen, would you please leave me alone with my husband? Kohaku asked forcefully. Madara shrugged, and strode out, and Pain nodded gratefully before leaving. How could she do this? Guki wilted slightly the moment they were alone. This puts everything we have worked for at risk. There is something Konan wants more than our peaceful world, she told him, wrapping an arm around him. What? If there's something she wanted, why did she not just ask me? He demanded. She did, Kohaku explained. You told her you needed him more, and you could handle keeping him alive. It appears she didn't believe you. Nagato. Guki looked stunned. Guki, if you were put in a position where the only way you could achieve our dream was to sacrifice me, would you? And before you say it, I mean the only way. You had tried everything else, and the very last option was something only I could do, due to my special nature. He knew that she referred to the 6 tails chameleon she carried. He looked deep into her currently amber eyes. Then his blue orbs fell, and he turned away from her. It's all right, she consoled him. I know you well enough to know your answer, and I do love you. That you even took a moment to consider it was more than I hoped for. But Konan is not wired the same way, and neither am I. I might sacrifice anything else for your ideal world, any of our friends and allies, and even myself. But I could never give up you. That is how Conan feels about Nagato. Then she tilted her head curiously, and pondered, although, I'm not sure what Nagato would say, if we asked him that. But Nagato can survive his original body's death via the paths of pain, he protested angrily, and Conan knows that. Have I been that bad of an influence on you? The shapeshifter asked sadly, the paths are not just Nagato with a different face. Certainly not to Conan. Guki started to argue again, and then hung his head in defeat. I let myself get too caught up in the war, and forgot about my apprentice's feelings. I need to contact her, and apologize. Before she does anything to jeopardize our goals. Apologizing won't be enough, she explained again, can you give up pain? If that is what it will take to get Conan back. We can make a deal, Namikaze suggested, if she can wait another month or two, we can have Madara focus on converting the most skilled of the former bandits and the genin from the Cloud Village. That should give us enough captains and lieutenants to implement some traditional training, and we won't need to rely solely on Madara. Then, if we can cement our hold on the small nations, I can probably let Nagato put the paths into a standby rotation, 1 or 2 at a time. I was planning to give Pain a reprieve within a similar time frame, and Nagato can definitely survive that long. You helped create Pain, she reminded him of the point he had used against Conan, and you apprenticed with the greatest living medical ninja. How long before the strain on Nagato begins to result in permanent damage? 2 weeks, Guki admitted mechanically, perhaps 3, with intravenous feeding and more frequent medical jutsu. But after that, nerve degradation will start to set in. His voice became stern again, but he can survive that. Within the time frame I propose, the damage should be limited to a mild to moderate degradation of Nagato's main body's senses of touch, taste, and smell. There is surviving, and there is living, she insisted. I would not be pleased if you could no longer take pleasure at my touch. I know, he agreed softly, but it is what we need to do to win this war. Especially with our enemies becoming more organized, and with the remaining neutral villages starting to reconsider. I need Pain. And you are willing to risk his life to win this? Yes, the Raikage said without hesitation. Then you must give up on Conan, she placed her forehead against his, and noted, but then, you already knew that. You knew this might happen after she came to you about Nagato's health for the 3rd time. It still helps to talk it out with you, my love, he smiled sadly at her, and I want you to know, I would never choose to sacrifice you, or Nagato or Conan, unless I could see no other way. I know, she hugged him tighter, happy for the mostly true plot. So Conan betrayed us, Madara could not resist the jab. She must have a good reason, the Naraka path countered. What could be more important than this secret dream the 4 of you share? Uchiha twisted the dagger, after all, the rest of you serve for power, money, knowledge, revenge, or whatever else Guki has swore to give us. But I thought you and the paper binder were genuinely loyal to Guki-sama. Nagato's fragment turned and walked away. But as he retreated from the verbal battle, his 7 parts all considered Madara's words. What could make Conan betray our dream? He asked himself. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.